What up? T-Bob here.
And Jake as well.
And look at you. You done stumbled upon little OTB Saints, where we bring you all the latest black and gold coverage.
Who are the Saints going to draft? Who's going to be their quarterback? What does the salary cap look like? All that information and more.
Hope you enjoy it. Like, subscribe. Klint Kubiak officially reaches a deal to be the Saints' new OC. And this tweet from me and Rappaport I found to be pretty interesting. Saying the Saints, and this came from 2 days ago, but the Saints and Niners' pass game coordinator, Klint Kubiak, reached a deal for Kubiak to be their new offensive coordinator. The top target all along, Kubiak's hire gives Coach Dennis Allen a rising play caller who was coveted by several other teams. It is that last sentence that I think matters here, given that, remember, when we talked about this, we kind of questioned, well, how attractive of a landing spot is New Orleans, right? Given some of the drama, given DA's kind of make or break status going into this year. And I thought, and I told y'all, that I thought it would probably scare some people off and you maybe wouldn't have the pick of the litter. But, look, I don't trust their top target all the whole way. Like, maybe it was, maybe it wasn't, but like that's what everybody says, right?
Yeah, anybody.
When they hire someone. But I do trust Rapport when he talks about him being coveted by other teams. And so maybe this is a situation where we're so close to the frustration that the bad kind of shines brighter than the good. But obviously with maybe how Derek Carr finished the season, his veteran nature, the weapons that we talked about, the young weapons that seem to be developing, a guy like Taysom Hill, Kamara, maybe there's a bit more there than we were originally given credit for.
Maybe. When we talked about it yesterday, so you look at what the Saints have and everything that they have available and the weapons they have, the resources they have, like you have the ability to come in and do some things that could be special. And it's a little bit more attractive. I think we do need to give the weapons more credit than we probably do. It is more attractive. They just weren't put in positions to really succeed. And it became predictable. And then so when it becomes predictable in the NFL, then defenses are going to be able to tee off on you. And I think we saw some of that. And when you sped things up at the end of the year, that's when you had your best offensive outputs. And so getting the ball out of Derek Carr's hands and things like that, which seems but they didn't do that last year. So for me, I look at the attractiveness of the Saints job and we hear that he had other suitors, that makes sense to me that you would choose the Saints, but also it's what is DA going to allow you to do? How free are you truly going to be? If Kubiak's the head coach of the offense, I feel really good about it.
Yeah, and so if that is the case, then I would, it kind of looks like the fact that he's been able to remake the offensive staff with his guys would maybe speak to him having some of that latitude, right? I would hope that you would not, certainly at times this last couple of years, they have felt overly conservative to the point of just trying to win defensively, right? I think rolling with Andy Dalton the manner you did was kind of like the one of the prime examples of this. And maybe they wanted to open it up more last year, and it just didn't happen. But it's all going to come down, like it always does, to Derek Carr. And if you're trying to get excited about this year, Derek Carr's last 6 games are going to be what people continue to lean on. Remember, over those 6 games, 74% completion, 15 touchdowns, 3 picks, 224 per game, passer rating of 117. Now, again, granted, this was mainly against the NFC South, right? This was not against kind of the who's who of the NFL, but good numbers nonetheless. So the question becomes, can Derek Carr make that the norm next year with another year with these players? Plus maybe he's a bit more healthy. But what do you do behind Derek Carr? Because it does feel like the Packers, with the emergence of Jordan Love and how they handled Aaron Rodgers back in the day, have shown that there is real value in taking a guy that you believe in and then allowing him actual time to develop. And with Derek Carr, you would seem to have the perfect kind of placeholder veteran, right? And the strength of this 2024 quarterback class makes it interesting because, you're not going to be there for the big 3, but I would say that Michael Penix Jr., J.J. McCarthy, and Bo Nix will be available for one of your picks. 14 and 45. Maybe two of those guys available at 45, but I think all three will likely be there at 14. And so the question is, do you try to follow that Packer blueprint and take a more long-term approach, or since DA's job is on the line, is that too future-oriented, right? Like, do you have to use that resource now at a more immediate position of need because DA has to do well this year or it's all over?
Yeah, I think it's probably you have to do better this year. You have to win now. And if you fall in love with the quarterback in the process and he's still there at 45, then yeah, you can make that move there. But like in the first round, there's nothing in the Saints' history to tell us that they would do that.
Yeah.
It's just they haven't done it in 50 years.
True.
So, like, I don't have faith that they're going to select the quarterback of the future and still pay Derek Carr and play Derek Carr. And you do have some needs. And the offensive line is one of those needs because, Steve, you talked about them playing and trying to win games on the defensive side of the football. Like, yeah, and they have a defense that could have done that if they could have ran the ball as well. But they couldn't. Very bad running team. And you try to run outside zone. You don't have the personnel to run outside zone. You get the back. You just don't have the personnel blocking in front of him. Andrews Pete's a free agent. Hurst is a free agent. So there's question marks there. What do you do? What do you do with Trevor Penning? So that's three guys right there that two of them probably leaving free agency, and then one, you don't have a spot for him. Like, he can't even get in on jumbo packages, and he's a first-round pick. So if you want to play that model, like, you had to have some different guys up front, and even the guys that you had, like, they're going to be gone. So, like, it feels like Saints taking alignment at 14, maybe, unless they decide to, hey, we're going to sign veteran guys on the offensive line, right? We can use free agency for that, and then we can maybe, select somebody at 14 to help out the offense. But you've got some deficiencies, and with past history of you not taking a quarterback, I just don't have a lot of faith that, because JJ probably be the only quarterback worth a 14, because if you take Bo Nix at 14,
no,
and that's the first quarterback you've taken in the first round since Archie Manning.
And then for whatever reason, the hive mind is just working against Michael Penix Jr. at this point. Everybody's just saying he's not a first round pick. So it's like, do you go against that? Do you trust your own evaluation over that? I mean, some have even said McCarthy and Nix over Penix. So I don't really understand how exactly that's all being evaluated beyond Penix's health. But yeah, okay. I mean, you raise a very fair point. 14's probably not the pick. Maybe somewhere at 45.
And how do you feel about Jake Haener, like, to be your backup too?
Well, yeah. So that's what I kind of want to get into next, because not great, right? Like, I don't think, at least, that Jake Haener. I don't know what it's like in-house, and granted, it's tough to get eyes on him because the only time we do is, like, in the preseason.
And
but
photo shoots.
Yeah, exactly. But it's like, do you feel comfortable? And after the last 2 years in which you have dealt with injuries at that position, do you feel comfortable rolling with Haener as a backup in the offseason? Now, where it gets even more interesting is, what do you do with Jameis Winston? Because surely, as we talked about, right, with culture and splintering of culture and trying to make sure that everybody's on the same page, it would feel like how Winston and company ended the season last year was damn near open rebellion, right? Meaning that there's no way he's going to get brought back. However, if you don't bring back Winston, you eat $10 million in dead money. Now, you could do it all next year. You could spread it out over 2 years, but that's a pretty, that's some incentive to try to maybe find a way to make it work. If you don't, there's like Sam Darnold, who Kubiak would have just worked with. There's Tannehill, Minshew, Flacco, Brissett, Tyrod Taylor, Mariota, Wentz, Mason Rudolph, who actually was the only quarterback that had a higher passer rating over the final portion of the season last year. Drew Lock, Josh Dobbs, Blaine Gabbert, still out there, playing in
Super
the NFL.
Bowl champion.
Is he really?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even realize
he
that.
took over the Chad Henne role.
Damn, what a beast, dude. So there are, like, if you don't want to go Winston route, there's vets out there, but again, it's going to be oddly expensive given the dead money that'll be tied into Jameis.
I wonder, like, inside the building, what they feel like their biggest deficiency is on offense. Because we know, God, do we know that DA loves Derek Carr. Like, we know that's a thing.
Yeah.
So I wonder in the building what they think, hey, we have got to get better here. You look at receiver, and then you know, Mike Thomas, like, you've got You got to handle that situation as well.
Well, he's gone. I mean, yeah, right. Like,
but what do you like? How? What are you going to do?
He's well, I thought he's a free agent. Wasn't a 1-year deal last year? Is he still under contract? I just assumed that he wasn't going to re-sign. But I'm not 100% on that.
He is not on the free agent list that I'm looking at. So your top free agents right now: Andrew Speed, Jameis Winston, James Hurst, Jimmy Graham, Trey Turner, Lonnie Johnson. You got Zach Bond. So, like, that's actually not that bad for the Saints. But the offensive line, being that it is two of your starters, even though they haven't been consistent starters, like, that's still going to be a problem. And so that's why it's not the most sexy thing in the world. But if the Saints don't sign free agents on the offensive line, they have to draft one again. And you just drafted one that can't get on the field.
Yeah, you cannot afford another O-line bust, though. So I'm kind of with you. Do you trust a rookie, like all the eggs in that rookie basket, or do you maybe accept less upside for just like here's a veteran that you know can just play at starter level in the NFL?
Yeah, the latest mock draft on ESPN.com has them selecting Tyler Guyton, offensive tackle from Oklahoma. So I think a lot of people assume that they are going to make that move, although being burned by Penning, and Penning's still young, maybe you can get something out of him, maybe kicks down the guard.
Yeah, that has to be, I mean, to me, that's priority number one, right behind. I mean, everything's in, everything funnels to Derek Carr, so I would take Derek Carr out of the priority list because that's where everything's going to funnel, trying to make him successful. What's more important, Kamara or Penning? Because, like, those two are the ones, to me, that you have to figure out offensively.
Yeah, I mean, Kamara means so much to the offense, but he plays a position that just doesn't have a long shelf life, and he's already beaten that timeline. And so, like, you have this young player that you have assets in that you feel like you got to get something because AK's given you something already.
Yeah, even last year, he paced for, they didn't rush it great, but, like, just volume numbers, he still paced quite nicely in terms of yards from scrimmage, catches, everything else.
Yeah, so fixing your offensive line, to me, would be priority number one for the New Orleans Saints. It was, T-Bob, it was horrible.
It was awful at the beginning. It is interesting, though, how it kind of solidified at the end when they got some more friendly scheme around them, right? Like Eric McCoy said, just like simple, just play actions, kind of taking some pressure off of the O-line.
And that's fair. Like, you still have Cesar Ruiz, who you need to see more out of consistently. Like, McCoy's probably your most consistent guy.
I would agree with that.
Ramczyk, you just don't know with the injuries.
Yeah, it kind of feels like he's on the way out here, dude.
So, gosh, I mean, and that was a player that 3 years ago, I'm like, he's going to have his name at the top of the Superdome.
Yeah, I mean, that's a guy who, now he was one of those, I mean, he came in first round and immediately became a Pro Bowler, then All-Pro. Like, he was ready from day one. They will have a new O-line coach.
Yep.
So we mentioned Kubiak getting to make the staff, got to pick and choose his guys. We went over Steve Janocko, the quarterback's coach, but they also hired John Benton, 60 years old. He's been an O-line coach in the NFL for the last 21 years. And maybe most importantly to this conversation, he was the O-line coach at San Francisco 17-20. Yeah. So there's familiarity there. And you talk about, Jake, like being able to coach the system. That is obviously someone who should be able to coach Shanahan's system.
And it's going to be a lot of outside zone.
Yeah.
A ton of it. Now, again, like, I think that Kamara is a really good, hey, if you want to run outside zone, like, model, like, with his running style and his patience, but you've got, like, last year they just kept running outside zone, and Nick and I talked about it yesterday. They just weren't good at it.
Yeah.
But now they have an offensive coordinator, an offensive line coach that have thrived in that system. Like, now you're going to see, is it truly scheme or is it personnel?
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. The scheme, yes, like, right, the scheme excuse we think should be taken out of it with the new Kubiak offense. So look, I'm not going to tell everyone to get too excited, but I think these are all pretty shrewd moves thus far, just in terms of coaching changes, right? Like, relative to how the NFL is versus college, this is not unlike LSU completely remaking their defensive staff and the hires that they made. Kubiak should represent a big upgrade, but we'll see. We'll see this year again. Unfortunately for the Saints at this point, I'm going to try my hardest not to extend them the benefit of the doubt. They are going to have to prove it this year after we crown them each of the last 2 years, only for them to fall disappointingly short.
So it looks like Michael Thomas, real quick, a little fact check. Looks like he's on a 1-year, $10 million deal that expires in 25.
So he is still on the books for this season. Oh, wow. I always assumed
$10
that was
million.
not the case. Yeah. Oh, boy. Well, he sure made it awkward. What to do with Mike T.
And we can hit this at some point. Like, yeah, he did with the tweets. He ain't the only Saint saying something about the current status of the franchise.
No.
And Cam Jordan had some pretty strong comments as well.
I know. And then that's going to be what –
that's your leader. That is like captain number one.
That's what I'm going to be intrigued to see how they handle that in the offseason. Do you excise everyone who kind of was feeling that way or expressed some of that sentiment, or do you try to repair those divides? Wow, just amazing black and gold takes right there, Jake.
I don't think I've ever heard any takes that are better than the two guys that just gave you that take.
And you can keep getting them by going ahead and liking, subscribing, ringing the bell to get notifications when we post. Have a great day. We'll see you on the next OTB Saints.